Hello students, myself Dr. Awadhesh Kumar Dubey. Students, welcome our new lecture series that is based on return to skill. Student, on the previous lecture, we discussed about the short-term production function. Before that, we are going to discuss about what the production function and what the types of the production functions. In today's lecture, students, we are especially discuss about the long-term production functions, or that is also be known as the return to scale. The means of return to scale, where there the scales what the producer have to set during the short runs is be carried on the long runs due to changing all factors in a systematic or in a predefined scale, in the predefined ratio, predefined proportion. The effect shows on the demand. This is the return to scale. It means if in a long runs entrepreneur have to such time to change their all factor, but the basic concept is this: in the long runs they are not to be change the scale. Scale means what? Scale means those parameter, those ratio, those proportions which are be settled during the short runs, and the entrepreneur are able to get the maximum productions. So having changed the old factor, but being constant the ratio, being constant the proportions, what the effect is shown on input change and output is the concerning topic of return to skills, student. So in this lecture, we are especially focusing on this concept, that where they are having the constant ratio, having the constant scales, and having changed the old factor, what the difference will be shown, what the difference will be, what the productions relations between the input and the output will be shown. It is a concerning topic of the return to scale, student. So now let's start this lecture. Those students who are the newly be joining this lecture series have subscribed this channel, and also be to suggest your friends for subscribing it, student. It is an academic channel by whom I will try to provide the study material for those students, especially who are not to be able to go on the schools due to the COVID era. So if you're getting the knowledge from the series, you must be have to subscribe it and suggest to your all other friends for subscribing it, student. Now let's start the topic, which are based on the return to scale, students. In this series, first we must be know about what the return to scale is, what the law of return to scale is. In long runs, it is in the long runs, all factor of the productions are variable. No factors is fixed. Accordingly the scale of the productions can be changed by the changing the qualities of all factors of production. Students, the law of the return to scale explain the proportions change in output with respect to proportional change in input. In the other words, the law of return to scale state when there are a proportions change in the amount of the input, the variables of output also change. Student, the degree of the change in output varies with the change in the amount of the input. For example, an output may change by a large proportion, same proportions, or a small proportion with respect to change in the output. Student, the ideas of the return to scale has been around it for a long time. So in the long runs, all factors of the productions are variable because entrepreneur have such time to change their old factor. But they being constant, they being carried the ratio what they have to use, what uh, they have to attain during a short runs, because in the short runs the ratio they have to use is providing them to maximum productions. So they carried out that scales, they carried out that proportions for a long runs, and having constant that ratio, they have to change their all factors. Right? Return to scales refers to the change in the production with a visible by the changing all the factor of the production simultaneously and in the same proportions. Thus, the study of the behavior of the production is response to change in the scale of the production, that is change in the same proportion of the all factor of the productions is called the law of production functions, or long-term law of production functions, or return to scale. In this, the technology is considered constable, stable, because in this state, the technological change will not be allowed. Student. So, student, at last we can say that to understand the return to scale, probably it is necessary to clarify the difference between the scales and the ratio. The combinations of the variables means with one or more fixed means is called a ratio. That is the part of the short-term production function, where there one factor being constant and other factor will be changed. So having the constant one factors and other factors will change, the proportions of these factors will be changed. So but in the best one of them is called the better scale, and the entrepreneur have to use that for a long terms, that is called as the scale. The ratio means the ratio, the best combination, best ever combinations in the short terms, which are providing the maximum productivity, and scale to carrying that picking one and carry it on the long run, it's called the scale. Students, the ideas of the proportion in the short term, because in the short term time is so short that is not possible to increase all the means of the productions. Therefore, in this period, production is increased by using more and more only variable resources. Thus, it is clear that in the short runs, the scale of the production in the firms remain constant, while the factor ratio can be changed. Student, the notions of returns to scale is related to the long runs. During the period, it is possible to make change in the means of the production as per the requirement. The increases of the all factors of the productions together in the same proportion is called increasing of scales. In other words, the increasing in the quantity of all the factors keeping the factor ratio constant is called the return to scale. So the return to scales are called the long-run production functions, and the law of the returns are called the short-term production functions, as earlier lectures we have to declare it, students. Now, the definition of the return to scale, the scholar, Professor Lewandowski, have to say about the production return to scale. The return to scale related to the behavior of the total output, as all inputs are varied and it is long run concept. Professor Lewandowski have to explain that this is a long run concept. Long run concept means where the entrepreneur have to time to change their O factor, but the ratio of the factors will be constant. Ratio of the factors will be changed in same manner, in a return in a same scale. Now the another one definition is given by the Professor Kursiani. Kursiani says the terms returns of a scale refers to the change in the output as all factor changed by the same proportion. Further, the Kursiani says that the same proportions are the key aspect of the return to scale, where the proportions are the same and the change of the factors, all factors are be able to change in the same proportion, and while changing the all factor, what the returns is obtained is the law of return to scale. Now, students, the stages of this return to scale, as earlier lecture students are the variable proportion students or short-term production functions. We see that there are three stages. Same in here. The return to scale also we have three scales, three stages. So here it is declared, students. Here it is described that one, on the basis of the proportions, law of returns can be classified into three categories. First category is the increasing return to scale. Second is the constant return to scale, and third is the diminishing return to scale, students. Students, now picking individually, separately, one by one. First is the increasing return to scale. Students, in the proportion change in the output of an organization, the greater than the proportional change in the output, the production is said to reflect increasing return to scale. For example, to proportion a particular product, if the quantity of the product is double and the increasing in the output is more than double, it is said to be an increasing return to scale. When there is an increasing in the scale of the production, the average cost per unit production is lower, then and then this is because in the stage of optimizing enjoy high economic scale. Now see it in the diagram, student. We have to change the factors in the same proportion. Firstly, we have to speaking one capital and one labor. Now see here, one capital and one labor, and we have to get the output in 10. Then we doubling the our capital and labor resources by 2 capital and 2 labor. Now we get the output more than double, because here the output is 10 and now it is 25. It means the output is more than double. So it is the increasing returns. Further, students, we say the capital is changed by 2 to 3. It means the 50% changes are be considered here. And similarly, students, the labor also we have to change 2 to 3. It means proportion is only 50%. But here you see the output is double. It means the factors is be changed in 50% ratio, but the output is be changed with the 100% ratio. Here the output returns is more than the ratio of the factors will change. So it is the increasing scale, because the output returns is more than the scale change of the factor. So this is what is called the increasing return to scale, or in Hindi, the long run scale, the long economic scale in long-term production function, or increasing return to scale on long-run production function. Now, students, the important factors is this. Now, what are the cause? What are the conditions for applicable, or what are the responsible factors for applying the increasing return to scales? Now, there are a number of the factors responsible for increasing return to scale. Some of the followings are some of them are the following. First, the technological and the managerial indivisibilities. Students, all of you know that when we have to start the productions, we have to bring some technology, some managerial expenses, but our production is not meet out to use the all technological efficiency, and also not to be used the all managing power. So in this case, students, if we are not to be able to use all factor, then it is not to be have to utilize it is not to be have to provide the maximum output, but by the increasing the factor, the technology and managerial indivisibilities are be bestly utilized. Hence, it is providing the increasing returns. So, implying that there are certain input such as the machines and the human resources used for the production process are available in a fixed amount. These inputs cannot be divided to suit different level of the proportion. For example, an organization cannot be half of the turbine of the small scale of the productions. Similarly, the organization cannot be half of a manager to achieve a small scale of the production. Due to this technology and managerial indivisibility, an organization needed to enjoy the minimum quantity of machines and managers. Even in the case, the labor of the production is much less than the capacity of the production's output. Therefore, when there is increasing in the input, there is exponential increases in the labor of the output. So this is the first cause, this is the first responsible factor for increasing return to scale. Now the second one is student is the specializations. Students implies that high degree of the specialization of the mans and machines helps in increasing the scales of the production. The use of the specialized labor and machineries help in increasing the productivity of the laborers and the capital per unit. This result is increasing return to scale. While using the best capital and resources in the production, and simultaneously when the factors are be regularly engaged in the production processes, then they itself have to specialized about their functions, about their work, about their job. So in these conditions, in these situations, if they have a specialized about their functions, about their job, about their work, so especially they have to return increasing order. So this is the cause of increasing return to scale, students. Now the third one, cause or responsible factor for increasing return to scale is the concept of dimension, students. Refers to relations of the increasing return to scale to the concept of dimensions. According to the concept of dimension, if the length and the breadth of a room increase, then its area get more than double. For example, length of a room is increased from 15 to 30 and breadth increase from 10 to 20. This implies that length of the breadth of the rooms double. In the such a case, the area of the rooms 15 into 10 to 30 into 20 is equal to 600. When the 15 into 10 is the 150 and 30 into 20 is equal to 600. It means the factors are we change doubling, but the output are we get the 4 times. So which is more than the double. The same concept is applies with the long run production function. When we have to doubling the factor itself provide the their best efforts by more than the double. So this is the cause of the increasing return to scale, student. Now see it, the second stage, that is the constant return to scale. If in constant return to scale, it means the production is said to generate constant return to scale when the proportions change in input is equal to the proportion change in the output. For example, when inputs are double, so output should also be double. Then it is a case of the constant return to scale. See in the example, the students, on the prior conditions, when we have to engage one factor of the labor and one factor of the capital. In this situation, student, in these situations, we have to get the output in 10 units. Then we have to get the output in 10 units. Now we have to doubling the capitals and the doubling the labor from 1 to 2 unit of the capital and 1 to 2 unit of the labor. Now the output is also be increases and it will be double from 10 to 20. So the proportion of the capital increment and the proportion of the labor increment is in the same manner. So this is also be called the constant return to scale. One another stages where we have to change from the capital 2 to 3 and the labor is also from 2 to 3. It means the ratio changes in 50%, and now we see in the output by here, where due to change in the capital from 2 to 3 and the labor from 2 to 3, our output is also be increasing the same proportion. It is now will 20 to 30. So the 50% capital change and the labor change have to react it on the 50% output change. So the proportion of the resource change is equal to the proportion of the output change. So here we say it as the same proportions of output in the comparison with the proportion change in the input. So this is what it is called as the constant return to scale. Now the students, the third is the Diminishing return to scale, it means the proportions of the return output is less than the factor change. Student, diminishing return to scale refers to situations when the proportions change in the output in less than the proportion change in the input. For example, when capital and labor is double, but the output get generated in less than the double, the return to scale would be terms as diminishing return to scale. Now, C is in the example, students. See in the example here, we have to use the capital in 1 unit and labor is 1 unit, then our output is 10 units. Further, we have to double the capital from 1 to 2 and double the labor from 1 to 2. Now the output is not to be doubling, it is now 18. From 10 to 18, it means the proportion change in the input is double, but proportion change in the output is less than the double. So this is the decreasing, or we can say diminishing return to scale, or diminishing return to scale of long-term production functions. Further, students, we have to 50% change in the input from 2 to 3 amount of capital and 2 to 3 amount of the labor. Here we have to get the output is not 50% change, it is less than the 50%, because the 50% is 9 unit have to increase and it will 27, but here we have to get only 24 unit of the output, so it is less than our output change. So here we see that due to changing the factor, the proportion of the changing of the factor and the output are be lesser than the changing the proportion of the factor. This is what it is called the diminishing return to scale. Now, students, these all factors are be discussed in a equal proportions with by the help of schedules. Here you see the factor is 1, capital and labor is 2. The proportion is 1/2. Further, the capital is 2, labor is 4. Also, if the proportion is 1/2, here capital is 4 and labor is 8, is also with the proportion of 1/2. And further, the 8 to 16, here also with the proportion of 1/2. Further, 16 to 20, 32 is also with the proportion of 1/2. And further, 32 to 64 is also with the proportion. It means they in this all factors have a constant proportion. Now see in this diagrams, in these tables, when we have to double the production factor from 1 amount of the capital to 2 amount of the capital and 2 amount of the labor to 4 amount of the labor, now the output is more than to double. Here the output is 2 to 6, it means the output opted or get it in the 20%, 200%, or we can say more than the proportion of the input change. Further, the students, we have to double the production factors from capital 2 to 4 and labor 4 to 8, but the output is more than the ratio of the input change, and now it is not 6 to 12, but it is 6 to 16. It means the proportions of these 3 units are be more than the proportion change in the input. In these 3 stages, the proportion of the production is more than the proportion of the output is more than the input change. So it is called the law of increasing returns. Further, in the rest of the factor, student, further in the rest of the example, see here in these two census, student, 2 data, we have to change the factor from doubling 8 to 16, from 4 to 8, and now the production is also be in double order. Our resources are be doubling from 4 to 8 unit of the capital and 8 to 16 unit of the labor. Same here, we get the output in double order, that is 16 to 20 to 32. Further, we see here the students from 8 to from 8 to 16 amount of labor of capital, and 16 to 20 32 amount of the labor. It means also we doubling the factor, and now we see the output is also be double from 32 to 64. So it is a stage or situation where the factor is be doubling. Now on the last stage student, we see the factor will be changed from 16 to 32 and 32 to 64. Matlab means the factor is be doubling, but the our output is not to be doubling, because it is less than the double, less than 128, because our previous output is 64 and now the next output is 110, it means 110. So here the factor will be changed in double manner, but output is not to be changed in double manner. So this is the law of diminishing returns. Further, the students, we see the last one is 32 to 64 amount of the capital resources, and further 64 to 128 amount of the labor factor. But our output is increases from 110 to 190, 100 to 190. So the proportion of the output is less than the input change. So this is the law of diminishing returns. Now see it by the uh, diagram, student. This is the first diagram from the capital and labor, what we have to earlier discuss. Further, the student, it is the second stage diagram, and further it is the third stage diagram. It means this is the law of increasing returns as 10, 25, and 50 increasing race proportion, and now it is a constant proportion 10, 20, and 30, and now it is the diminishing proportion 10, 18, and 24. So this is the students, the ratio of the stages of the law of return to scale. So I think students, you are able to understand what the stages of the production law of return to scale, or what are the stages of the long-term production function. I think you are better understand the concept of law of return to scale, what the economic says and what the law says. If you have any confusion, you must we have to comment me, you must we have to put the message on comment box, and I will try to resolve your queries and your questions, students. So thanking for joining this lecture, thanking for viewing this channel, and your kind suggestions. If you have any query, you must be have to put the comment on comment box, and I will try to resolve it. Thank you, students. Thanks for this classes, and stay safe, stay home for COVID production, student. Thank you, student. Thanks a lot.